I was really pleased to be able to hear back from this activist organizer with SLO Street Medics, SLO for San Luis Obispo, which is a city to the north of me. I'm in Santa Maria. San Luis Obispo is, the county seat of San Luis Obispo County, of course. And, that's where Cal Poly SLO is. And it was also the site of a bunch of Black Lives Matter rallies last year in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. Check last week's videos. I did a follow up on some of that, some of the the legal proceedings that are going on with that, and how dishonest the local law enforcement has been. But this group, SLO Street Medics, started around the protests. It's medical professionals volunteering their expertise to provide care for people who were getting hit by, tear gas canisters. I mean, as Black Lives Matter resurged, police came out ready for a fight. They, all across the country, people were brutalized and injured, had their eyeballs shot out by, all kinds of matter of projectiles that the police use. Less than lethal, they call them. Some people died in amongst all this. In San Luis Obispo, one of the first Black Lives Matter rallies was tear gassed. And so that's what this group organized around. But as the protests tended to die down, they organized around helping the unhoused community in San Luis Obispo. San Luis Obispo has quite a number of people, who trapped in poverty and, homelessness. And, I find it interesting that, this group, which is definitely a left, a group of leftist, medical professionals who volunteer their expertise, are now in not just direct, care of helping the unhoused, but also acting in an advocacy role. So we're going to see that in this interview with Michelle from the SLO Street Medics. Basically, we talked about over the last week, the unhoused community in San Luis Obispo was facing pressure from the San Luis Obispo Police Department to vacate a park, Mitchell Park. And then, just 2 days before I spoke with Michelle, an unhoused resident passed away. He died in the streets of San Luis Obispo. So we talk about all of that in this interview. So my guest today for Political Payne is Michelle with SLO Street Medics, SLO for SLO San Luis Obispo, for anyone unfamiliar, but SLO Street Medics is exactly what it sounds like. It's a group of street medics who kind of got their start during the resurgence of Black Lives Matter last year in 2020. Why don't you tell me a bit about that, Michelle, and then we're going to start talking about some of the crisis that's facing unhoused people in San Luis Obispo.
Okay, so back in August, a group of us, we got together. We were going to the protests and all the marches and providing like medical care. So we just got together and we figured that it would be better if we as a group shared our knowledge and just went up and helped folks. And so that's kind of where SLO Street Medics started.
I forgot to mention, you are a healthcare professional yourself.
Yes, I work in healthcare. Been doing it for 14 years, so quite a while.
So what led you to want to use your professional expertise as an activist?
Well, I feel like I'm BIPOC, so I've always kind of, I'm really drawn to it. And like, I'm older, I'm in my 40s, so I was seeing a lot of people like maybe, I don't know, it just seemed a little dangerous to me, and I wanted to do whatever I could do to help. And I was also at the June 1st protest where we got tear gassed.
Yeah.
I had gotten off of work. I got a bunch of texts. They were like, this was like 4:00. They were like, they're going to get tear gas. So of course I was like, well, I'm on my way over there. And I was like fully prepared. So I actually ended up helping people like get out of there and like pouring water in their eyes because I got like, we were actually behind the police lines at the end. it was like me and a group of 4 people. We had to walk out between the police, like with our hands up. So it was a little gnarly.
Wow.
So yeah, and I just wanted to be able to use my experience with medical stuff, and I'm trained in like de-escalation, and I wanted to use that like to help people.
Wow. And then, so as the protest kind of died down, we have seen, or you and your group have kind of been involved with the unhoused community. I know it's a thing that you hear about in San Luis Obispo. It's often a thing on, right wing, colloquially call them shit posters on like the Facebook comments of local media will talk about is the homeless and derisively and such. But we had this big heat wave, and that kind of got you connected with some unhoused folks. Tell me a bit about that, because when I hear street medics, I think protesters. I think of seeing them in Portland and other areas during BLM, but then it just makes sense if you have unhoused people who live on the streets, who have very scant, if any, access to medical resources. Street medic, it just clicks, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think historically, like street medics, like this is like doing a lot of mutual aid is like what we do like across. And part of like what we do is like wound care stuff. It's not just like giving out food. It's not just like giving out supplies. It's like, hey, let me check in on you. Like, are you okay? Is anything hurting you? Advocating like if there's a really bad wound or it's got an abscess, like maybe you need to go to the hospital. I can help you. If you don't want to go by yourself, maybe I can help you get there, or I can advocate for you. So yeah, it kind of just goes along with like helping people. And like even during the protests, when we would see unhoused people, maybe they were getting agitated by they heard a lot of yelling, and we would help them and kind of like help them calm down or see if they needed anything. So yeah, and as the protest stopped, or not stopped, but it kind of died down, we really started focusing more on the unhoused community and like providing mutual aid with them. And so
Yeah. And then now recently you've been posting a lot of videos, kind of updating, your folks in your community. There's been a lot of connection on social media, especially on Instagram, in the left, community, left organizations across the Central Coast, and in San Luis Obispo. People can find you at SLO Street Medics on Instagram. And you've been posting these videos lately about kind of one thing just happened recently. But before we get to that, let's talk about the kind of Mitchell Park tent situation. And you shared one recording of an interaction you had with a law enforcement officer directly, but then you're also providing updates. You've been really kind of sticking your foot in the door over at SLO PD, it sounds like, and getting the chief on the phone and other people to kind of ask them about what's going on. Why don't you tell me how this started with what's going on at Mitchell Park?
okay, so last Monday we were doing our food distribution, and one of our unhoused community members came up to me and he said, hey, SLO PD has been coming through the parks and they're telling us that there's a tent ordinance and that we can't have our tents up during the day, and it's illegal, it's against the law. So I told him, okay, well, I'll look into it. I'm not sure. I like to like have both sides before I start advocating and saying, oh no, just screw them, like you can have your tents up. I want to make sure that I'm giving people the right information, the correct information. So I put in calls to Derek Johnson. I put in a call to Heidi Harmon, other members of the city council. I put a call into the chief of police, and the chief's office called me back first. And the person that I spoke to, I talked to him on Tuesday. He said that there was no ordinance, that there was an ordinance coming down from City Hall, and that they were going out and doing the education to the unhoused individuals, letting them know that an ordinance is coming through, which I don't know, it kind of bothered me, because to me that felt like oh, you're using that as an excuse to make first contact. And then you're like, oh, and then also, what else are you doing in here? So it just kind of bothered me. And I was like, okay, so there's no ordinance. I just want to be clear so that I know what I'm telling people is right. And he said, no ordinance yet. It's coming down. There will be one. So then I was like, okay, fine.
So the story's changing already.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, fine. And so I came out Tuesday night, told the unhoused folks that, hey, this is what they told me. And then I believe it was Wednesday morning. Yeah, I want to say it was Wednesday morning. I'm not exactly sure. It's either Tuesday or Wednesday. A lot has happened this week, but
understandable, yes.
One of our unhoused community members texted me because I told him, hey, I'm not always out here, and it's like it is just if I happen to be out here and catch it, I'm usually never here when the officers show up. So I said, text me if they're here again, and I'll do my best to come out. So he texted me about 11 o'clock, and he said, oh, the cops are here harassing us again. They're saying that the tent ordinance that we can't have the tents up. And so I got in my car and I drove over to Mitchell Park, and there was 3 officers. And when I walked up, one of the officers was, I just caught the tail end of the conversation. It was like, why don't you go to Prado? Which that's not a viable solution for everyone. Not everyone can get into Prado. 40 Prado.
Is Prado the shelter there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's barriers, there's barriers to access to it. Like,
I'm sure
some people are, they've been kicked out of there, depending on your legal status. Like, if you have certain felonies, you're just not allowed there. So I intervened and I said, look, if you're going to try to give people solutions, like, make sure that they're viable solutions, and you're not just like telling people things that aren't going to help them. And then I also brought up, like, well, why are you stopping, or why are you here bothering them? Why are you bothering these folks? And I said, well, it's because of the tent ordinance. And I mentioned to the officer, well, actually, there's no tent ordinance. And he said, yes, there is. And I said, no, I talked to your chief. I talked to the chief's office yesterday. They told me that there's one coming. There isn't one right now. And the officer told me, yeah, okay, you're right. It's not official yet. So, but again, that there is something coming from City Hall or City Council. And I was like, okay, fine. But why, like, don't harass them? And then, I did mention to him of, like, what I said about, like, you need to give people viable solutions. Like, don't just tell them, oh, go to 40 Prado. There's barriers. People, like, you need to look at each person, like, as an individual, and see, like, is there any other solution? So then the officers left. And then the next day, which this was Wednesday by this point, Thursday, I got another text about 9 o'clock in the morning, and from the same person. I couldn't make it. I was at work. So I put out a call to see if any of our other street medics could come and just be a witness. And one of my comrades came out, and they were the one that actually, like, took the video of the female officer. So yeah.
Oh, okay. That wasn't you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was when, I guess, we finally got, like, some real information of what this alleged code was. But it was the same thing, that it's not a real thing, but it's coming down from City Hall. So yeah, it was very confusing. So that was the day I decided to call John Clevens, he's supposed to be the advocate from TEMA, working with SLO PD, and he's the one that comes out and talks to the unhoused individuals. That conversation did not go very well. I guess maybe my language, because I said, why are the cops here harassing people in their tents? And he immediately switched up to, why, I don't understand why you people. And I said, I don't know who you're talking about. I'm myself. But I guess it had something to do with the city council meeting on Tuesday, some of the public comment. So he was trying to equate the two, and I kept saying, I was like, that's not, I'm talking about this. I'm seeing if we can do something to help you, because.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I ended up ending that conversation on a very bad note. You know, he wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise. He just kept telling me, well, you're emotional and you're yelling at me. And I was like, well, I'm trying to get a word in, and you're not letting me. So I ended up ending it like, you know, this is like has devolved into something that's not healthy for either one of us. I called you to see if I could like, if we could come to some sort of agreement that I could help you, you know, as members of the community, like if there's anything that we can do. And I said, but you know, it's obvious that like we can't help each other, and this is unhealthy at this point. So I said, so thanks for your time and goodbye. And yeah, that was, I checked
Yeah.
that off the boxes.
And
Not enough.
so, and now are you, I think I saw a video, correct me if I'm remembering this wrong, but something about now they're citing a 1989 ordinance.
So yeah, I talked to Erica Stewart, I believe she's the vice mayor.
Okay.
And talked to her for about a half an hour on, I believe it was Saturday. And she actually gave me information that like no one else had given me, that there's an existing ordinance, or not, it's not an ordinance, sorry, I believe it's a Parks and Recs code.
Okay.
And yeah, it's something that's from 1989. So my belief, my assumption, like when I think about that, I'm like, oh, so somebody was given the job to go through, to dust off these books,
Yeah.
and go and look at something and find a way to make this, you know, the tents in the parks against the law.
Justifiable. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can look it up online. I don't have the code with me right now, but if you look it up online, underneath it, kind of, I want to say in fine print, there's another like ordinance, but it was amended on January 19th, 2020. I believe it was 2021. It could have been 2020. I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so that makes me feel like it was kind of recent.
Yeah, sounds like yeah, that's the year I was born, oddly enough. So
Oh wow.
you know, it's this thing they're citing is as old as me. So and then so you went through this all last week,
Yeah.
and people need to understand. I want my audience to understand that it is difficult communicating and dealing with bureaucracy, especially, and law enforcement. Like I could hear it in the voice of your SLO Street Medic as they were talking to the officer. It's very intimidating. I could hear it in the exasperation in your voice as you were trying to relay some of these phone calls you were having on your Instagram. That's difficult to do. A journalist, we deal with it, but then when you're just a member of the community and you're not you're not showing up to them with a bouquet of flowers or a gift basket.
Yeah.
You are trying to really discuss something difficult. They can be standoffish. There's the easy bureaucratic move of, well, they said this and you need to talk to so and so, and just passing you around.
I've gotten that. Yeah.
I could tell, all the people you've named so far, and it sounds like you're not just dealing with the PD, but you're also dealing with maybe nonprofit agencies that deal with the PD, right? Was that correct?
Well, it's the Transitions Mental Health. I'm not sure if they're nonprofit, but I know they partner.
Yeah.
They have an officer in SLO PD and this man, John Clevens, who
I see.
he also mentioned to me that he has he mentioned his degree 4 times in the conversation, which I was like, I okay.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, just a dash of, credentialism in with all the other crap he's throwing your way. But so then we saw just the another example of what systemic inequality and wealth inequality, and just how we've continued to push people in poverty and people, all the cascading issues that people in poverty deal with, the interlacing crises, right? Whether it could be, mental health or addiction or just regular health problems that come with not having shelter, not having regular food sources, all of that stuff. We saw that come to a head on Sunday when an unhoused member of the community was found dead on the streets of San Luis Obispo. Can you tell me
Yeah.
about that? And I pray, I give you and your group a lot of praise for raising money. You could tell me how people can do that as well, for the funeral expenses, or the what's to be done and all of that. But tell me the story. What happened after this rough week you had dealing with the bureaucracy? Then you see the outcome of this lack of caring in our society.
Yeah, I Sunday morning about 11 got a text that our friend had passed away. Um and I don't know. I had taken the day off work. Actually, I was supposed to work from like 12 to 6, and I had called my work and I said like I can't come in. I had a family emergency. Which I don't know why I did that. I don't usually do that, but I called out work, and then I got the call, and so I immediately came down to Mitchell Park. Like, what happened? Talked to one of their friends. They're really good. I guess would be the person that they stayed with, the person that kind of took care of them, and like we just shared a hug, and like both of us were crying. Like, you know, sorry, I'm getting emotional even now. Like just thinking.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking on Tuesday. I'm pre-recording this, so this is 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on and laying bare this trauma with us here. But I think it's important that people understand this, because as a journalist, and working for a weekly newspaper when I did, and the daily, like, this is not something that gets reported on. Homeless people
Yeah.
or unhoused people across the United States, commonly referred to as homeless, die in the streets every day. It doesn't make news. It's not a if it bleeds it leads situation, like a stabbing or a shooting or whatever. If they can put a BIPOC person's mugshot on the cover, like a lot of legacy media will do, it's not like that. It's a rolling crisis. My own uncle lived unhoused in Santa Barbara, and he drowned in Goleta Beach,
Oh my
because
gosh,
he
I'm so
couldn't get
sorry.
this was years ago, because he couldn't get access to his own medication. So I have this in my own family. This is it's like just the constant death toll of our system, of whether you want to blame capitalism or neoliberalism or whatever. There's all the things we can point the finger at, but this is just a continuing death toll in our society that doesn't get talked about. So again,
Yeah.
giving you a moment there, I appreciate you coming on and telling us about this.
Yeah, and it's not like you said, it's not sensational. It doesn't make the news, it's
Yeah.
not like a breaking story. But I called KSBY, and I let the person there know, and they said, well, our camera person is in I don't remember if it was Napomo or somewhere farther away, but we will send them out there as soon as possible. And so I was here when they got here, and I went up to him and I said, hey, I have one of the unhoused individuals would like to talk to you, because this was their friend. And so he did the interview with him, and then we were talking afterwards, and I mentioned that like I wanted that us SLO Street Medics, members of the community, like we wanted to help. We did not want we don't want our friend to end up in an unmarked grave, or you know we want his life to matter. His life mattered, so we want him to have proper send off. So, and that's when I mentioned that we were fundraising to get money for the cremation, or if the family is found, then we would donate that to them to help them with any burial costs. And if they didn't want the money and they were able to take care of it on their own, then we would be trying to do like maybe a memorial here, like they do the bike racks downtown with like the little plaque and like put his name and stuff in it. So we want to honor him, basically. Yeah.
Wow. And I heard somewhere recently that there have been many unhoused folks in San Luis Obispo area who've passed over the last year. Can you do you
Yeah.
know anything about that?
I don't know very much about it. I know that there was two, I believe, on the 101. And then there was a couple other folks that I believe that it's about 11, maybe,
Oh my
unhoused folks that
goodness.
have passed since March. My numbers could be off, but I believe that it's 11. And I actually talked to the officer that is in charge of our friend's case last night. Because I just wanted to let him know that, hey, we're fundraising, so if family can't be reached, we will take care of any expenses. And he was very surprised at how much he said he'd been getting people calling him all day, and he said that never happens. He said it's unfortunate, and it always should. He said, but when it's an unhoused individual, he said they usually go, and like he said, it's just quiet. No one ever hears about it. No one ever mentions it. It never makes the news, or it rarely makes the news.
Mm-hmm.
And he agreed that that's not right. Every single person on this earth, like, their life was important, and they deserve to be honored.
Tell me, Michelle, is that why you do what you do? For people on the left, like mutual aid has really exploded over the last couple years, especially in 2020. A lot of groups came together around BLM, but then mutual aid, especially as we've seen the failure of the federal government, state government, county government, city government, every level to respond in a way that actually directly meets people's needs. I've interviewed a group, that's like Santa Maria SLO Alliance,
Yeah.
and they are doing mutual aid. Santa Maria Youth Abolitionists, Lompoc Free Comida. You have several groups in San Luis Obispo, and this is going on across the nation, where I'm happy to see leftist groups coming together and actually doing something. Like, is that, and why do you think, first, why do you do what you do, but also why do you think it's so important for the community that you're serving right now in San Luis Obispo?
Well, for me personally, I was raised in the system. I became a ward of the court at 11. I was in juvenile hall. I was in group homes. I ran away. I was living on the streets at 15. I was living in the lobby of Pantages Theater down in Hollywood. So
Wow.
I, accessed a lot of the drop-in centers down there, a lot of the shelters. So I know what it's like to be unhoused. I have an extensive knowledge of the system because I was in the system. I've been to county jail. I've never been to prison, but I have been in jail. So I have like kind of a unique experience and perspective in that I don't have any like preconceived notions or confirmation bias or, the messages from society telling me what unhoused people are. I don't have to work through any of that. I just try to like meet people where they are. And so that's why I do it. And I think like with the younger generation, growing up in this world, growing up the last 4 years with Donald Trump as the president, and just seeing that nobody cares, nobody is going to hold him accountable if he's the president, and nobody holds him accountable. Like, how do we as like just normal people expect like to hold our government accountable, and that we're not powerless, but we have to do whatever it is like that we have to do to come together to take care of our communities, because nobody's going to take care of us. We have to do it for ourselves. So I think I love that the younger generation is like out there and like doing the hard work, because like my generation, a lot of people in my generation, I'm 42, are just, they're either hiding their heads in the sand and they're like, oh, well, it doesn't really affect me, or maybe they do the bare minimum, or they, consumerism, they just buy stuff to like pretend like everything's okay. Like if something happens, like, what happened on the 6th of January, a friend of mine bought a new TV. So yeah, it was like just to get their mind off of it. So yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah.
Or they're just struggling to get by themselves. And
yeah, and it's hard when you're struggling.
Yeah.
It's hard to do anything. I find that the people who often have struggled the most in life are the ones that give the most, that like try the hardest, like that are out there like doing the hard work, because like they know what it's like.
Hell yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, sing it from the rooftops. The other thing, and the other way that people react to the community that you've been serving and you've been helping out in SLO, and especially on the right, is criminalization,
Yes.
right? And that's directly what you've been dealing with. Is okay, well, we need an ordinance. Well, we have one, or there is one. No, that not quite. We're working on one, not really. We're amending an old one, like just coming up with a legalese way to further shunt human beings out of sight and out of mind.
Yeah.
What if you were to address people who feel this way, and you hear it constantly from the right? They love to beat up California as, oh, look at all the homeless in California. And when you really when I've pressed them on it, people who think this way, their answer is just arrest people, get them out of my sight, basically criminalize. How would you, if you were to say something to people who think that way, like, you know, I mean, you don't have to you could try appealing to their humanity, but I'm not putting you on the spot with
No.
that. But why do you feel differently? And I mean, I'm sure it informs a lot of what you do. I thank you again for sharing your personal
Yeah.
experience.
I personally, I don't have the patience to like talk to people like that. I'm just like, you know what, screw you. If you think that's what, there's nothing I say is going to change your mind. But I do try to like kind of give them a little perspective, like, okay, well, what if that was you? You know, and I try to humanize people, and like, you know, you say, well, they're just drug addicts. Well, okay, but what does that mean beyond that they're just drug addicts or this? What does that mean? What does that stem from? Like the drug addiction just didn't just come out of nowhere. What are the systemic issues that folks are dealing with? You know, you're just disparaging them and saying, well, oh, you're just dirty or this, you're gross, you talk to yourself. Okay, but why? I want to get down to the root cause of, well, why? Well, what happened to this person in their life that this is where they are now? Like, you know, there's so many different things like that could have happened to people, you know, so
Yeah.
many different causes. And, you know, dealing with trauma, dealing with abuse, like some people just are not equipped to deal with this world. I know personally, like I have a lot of friends, or I had a lot of friends, you know, when I was younger, that they aged out of the foster care system. You turn 18, they kick you out. A lot of these people didn't know what to do. They had no life, minimal life skills. They didn't have a parent teaching them. They have no safety net. And so, you know, up until 18, the system is taking care of them, and then they just kick them out on the street. Now you're on your own, and failure to thrive. Like they can't do it. You can't do it without community.
Yeah. What are you supposed to do? You know, if
Yeah.
you have, you have nothing, you have no, I don't know what you call it when if you're, you know, I think of having a stable family life, having parents, and then, you know, they kind of like the mama bird, you know, pushing them out of the nest, but really that, you know, mama bird's in control. They can, you know, you can,
Yeah.
yeah, pull you back to the nest any moment. So to think that, I mean, that's people in the foster system. But like you said, I did when I was at the newspaper years ago, I did a story about folks who were houseless, and you know, it ran the gamut to where, you know, I talked to people who, one man who had schizophrenia and was, you know, just dealing with that, and it was, you know, couldn't access medication, but what he could access, it was like self-medicating type of
Yeah.
stuff, right? I talked to one woman who's just like, you just, you know, you lose your car, and then you lose your job because you can't get there because you lost your car, you can't afford to get it repaired or get another one, and then you lose your place where you're staying.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like this could explain anybody. Like I, you know, she said, I was just like anybody else until these things happened.
Yeah.
All the way to a woman who lived in her car, who like had a pension, but she was just like, the rent's too damn high, and I'm making a strategic choice right now, and then I'm going to go like save up for a down payment in a state where it's cheaper to live. So, it runs the gamut. I can see this, the sun is
I
setting,
know.
or maybe it's just backlighting you there, so it's getting dark. But Michelle, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you can think to add? Where people can link up with SLO Street Medics if they haven't already, maybe donate to help out with this effort to support the cremation, and also hopefully the family of, if you can connect with them, this
Yeah.
person that was lost on Sunday.
So we're on Instagram at SLO.streetmedics. And then if you want to like donate, or you can donate at SLO Street Medics on Venmo, and then we also have SLO Street Medics on PayPal. And yeah, if you send a message to our Instagram, if you like DM us, if you have supplies, or if you maybe want to help out, like we will always, like, we usually accept, or like not accept, but we'll try to find some way to like connect with you if we need to pick up stuff, or like, so yeah, we just want to help our community, and like collaborating with other members in the community is like where that's what really matters. And then on Sunday, we're doing a vigil, like a candlelight vigil in Mitchell Park at about 5 o'clock for our friend. And
so
everyone is invited.
Sorry, this is Sunday, February 28th.
Yes.
So everybody knows at what time in Mitchell Park?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, a vigil for this unhoused person who was lost. And this is at a time when the SLO PD and the system, the politicians and the government is kind of working to put another stricture on people who are in poverty, just fighting to get by.
Yeah, and we also want to honor the other 11 people, like I mentioned before, that passed, so it's also to honor them.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle, again, with SLO Street Medics in San Luis Obispo. That's what SLO, SLO.
Yeah.
I do have some in my audience all over the place, so they go, slow. Why do you keep saying slow? Is it like,
yeah,
what is it, what's the speed there or whatever? But I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the work you're doing. So hopefully, we can let more people know about your group and what you're up to in San Luis Obispo. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You bet.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, what'd you think? That is Michelle with SLO Street Medics at San Luis Obispo. SLO Street Medics. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Twitter. I was just posting about it while the interview was going. Here's their Instagram at SLO.streetmedics. And their posts, Michelle keeps posting updates and everything. This is interesting. This was a notification that was posted at Mitchell Park, which she was talking about there in the video. Listen to this. The City Public Works Director and the Parks and Recreation Director have issued an administrative interpretation of San Luis Obispo Municipal Code, Chapter 12.04, to provide clarification of existing prohibitions of encroachments as applied in the city parks prior to enforcement of those provisions in parks. Per the government code, prohibited encroachment in parks, including enclosed structures such as a tent, that can present safety concerns resulting in the obstructions. So please also note, city parks are closed to the public by ordinances from 10 p.m. to May. So, it is just obviously the SLO PD is making it difficult for the unhoused people, and you can hear the kind of run around that that they were receiving there. They're getting harassed, told they can't have tents there, and then when Michelle and others with SLO Street Medics were pressing them, the SLO PD was like, well, there's an ordinance, and then she's like, well, I just talked to someone with the city, and no, there's not. Well, they're working on one, and well, then it turns out no, there isn't. They dug deep into the files to find this, and then they have according to this thing, an administrative interpretation. So lots of legalese and bureaucratic language there to further push out, criminalize unhoused people in San Luis Obispo. Jay Coleman in the comments says, cool to show some activists some love. Hell yeah. Yes, that's part of my project here with Political Payne, is I'm hoping to platform local organizers, activists, nonprofit leaders, folks with unions, anybody on the left who's doing work in my area or elsewhere. Of course, probably going to, I've already had another fellow left YouTuber on here, podcast host. So, just having these conversations, elevating the left, bringing us all up together. That's my mission, is to, show people that, the leftism isn't always just, stuck on a college campus or in a DSA meeting, or, intellectuals arguing about Das Kapital. It's just, folks, working class people who have ideals and idealism, and they're motivated by real stuff, and I'd never shared that before much at all, really, as I did in there, that my own uncle was unhoused in Santa Barbara, and he died swimming in the beach because he didn't have his heart medicine, didn't have his access to that, and so he had a heart attack while he was swimming and he drowned. So this type of stuff affects all of us. Systemic inequality, the callousness of our society, this giant machine that just grinds so many people up in its gears and just leaves them, uncared for or literally to die. So those are some of the things that motivate me to do what I'm doing here. And I hope to just, keep you guys aware of what's going on in my community. It might be your community, you might be from this area, but in the end, we're all part of a global community, and one race, the human race, just trying to get through this together. Solidarity with all. So I hope you guys appreciated that. I know I appreciated Michelle sharing that information. So hopefully we can, get more of that here on the show, on the stream, on the channels, wherever you're watching this. I appreciate you.